Hi, and welcome to the Kelley Kitley podcast, America's Social Worker Unfiltered, where every week I have hopeful, honest, and deeply human conversations with change makers. And today I am so excited to have Scott Strode as our guest. He is the founder of the Phoneix, a sober active community, the co-founder of the NewForm platform to connect with sober events and communities. He's the author of Rise, Recover, Thrive: How I Got Strong, Got Sober, and Built a Movement. He also has the Sober documentary that is going to be released next week. We'll hear a little bit more about that. He is a CNN hero, and I happened to serendipitously catch him on CNN yesterday talking about his book and Sober October as we wrap this month, and was like, hey, I know that guy is going to be on my podcast tomorrow. So thank you for saying yes, and thank you for being here. I'm such a huge fan of yours. And I just want to welcome you to the podcast. And I feel like I have a lot of emotions in my chest after listening to your book because there was so much I related to. And I guess I'd love to jump right in and ask you why you think trauma is the number one health crisis, because I couldn't agree more.
I think what a great topic to jump right in on because
We don't you know, we go right to it.
yeah, well, I love that because I think that it is the number one health crisis in our country, and I think that it's actually being evidenced in sort of the polarization and the divisiveness that we see being fomented by so many leaders currently. Um, I think is sort of a symptom of um, feeling disconnected and not in nurturing community with each other.
Mhm.
And for me, my trauma experience, as you know from the book, but my father had untreated mental health struggles, and my stepfather had untreated alcoholism, and the chaotic childhood that created for me um, resulted in this pain that I started pouring drugs and alcohol on to try to make it go away. But it also showed up in a whole bunch of other ways, like how I formed relationships, how I viewed myself, my self-esteem, and and I think there's so many of these sort of formative year challenges that we experience that shape us, and and I worry if we don't sort of reset more broadly as a society that the kids growing up under this sort of current cultural moment will be deeply impacted by
Mhm.
what's happening in our society.
Yeah. Well, and from a more intimate place, you are breaking generational trauma and you are probably doing some reparenting of yourself while you're parenting your own children. And how lucky are they to have a sober dad in their life?
Yeah, most days. They're,
We're
it's
human, right? We're not perfect.
yeah, we're not perfect, but I do um I do just really feel blessed that my wife and she's in recovery too,
Mhm.
Kate, and so we get to show up for our kids in a way that my parents couldn't show up for me, but we get to build a very different life for them. And an example of that was, when my son was young, he was just coming out of diapers, and I was like changing his diaper, and he could still talk. He was starting to talk pretty well. And he said, Dad, what's angry? What's angry? And the fact that at like 3.5, what he knew of anger and what I knew of anger at 3 are very different because of my
Mm.
sobriety.
Mhm.
And and that just really framed for me that I have this chance to give him and my daughter Alice a very different life than I had. And it's really at the core kind of the focus of the work at the Phoneix and through New Form and all the other efforts we have gone on over here.
Well, let's talk about the Phoenix for a moment because did you celebrate 28 years this year in
20,
April?
yeah, yeah, I got 28 years sober this year. And yeah, and 20 of them, almost 20 of them, as of next year, 20 of them will be spent trying to build the Phoenix. So,
Which I have to say, so I've known about your program, and you're well represented at other conferences I go to, and people. I'm very connected in the recovery community, not only as a clinician but as a sober woman in recovery as well. And you know, the day I stopped drinking, I almost threw up after a CrossFit class, and I'm convinced that's why I stopped drinking. And
mhm.
so for me, being very high achieving and perfectionistic, I used marathons and triathlons and a half Ironman to like prove to myself that my drinking wasn't that bad. I was a marathon coach, and I remember at 25, like smoking cigarettes on my back porch before I went to go coach. So for me, I have found my way with how I incorporate exercise into my recovery. But for me, it was such a negative piece because it was how I measured my worth.
Mm.
And you have created something so different with this community, the Phoenix, that I'd love for you to talk about because it's an incredible resource for people all over the country to find a supportive, connected community. And the only requirement is 48 days, or I'm sorry, 48 hours
Yeah,
clean.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's interesting you say that because it took me sort of going to this place in my own athletic pursuits when I first got sober to kind of bring to re-temper sort of the way that I brought athletic pursuits to Phoenix. So when I first got sober, I raced triathlon, and then I did my first one. Then I had to do a half Ironman. Then I had to do Ironman. Then I had to try to qualify for the world championship.
Oh, yeah.
Then I
Hmm.
did a mountain bike race, then a 24-hour mountain bike race solo. Then I had to,
Yeah.
it's like I could never pour enough of that accomplishment into the voids that were here
Mm.
because I wasn't doing the work on the inside. I was trying to do it on the outside.
Yeah.
And but I brought some of that understanding to Phoenix and made it more about the people you're sharing the ride with or the run or the hike than how far the hike is and where it finishes and how quickly we get there. And this simple idea that with 48 hours sober and this ethos that we have that we're here to lift each other up, not pull each other down, that we can empower each other towards accomplishing great things. And in those great things, getting to the top of a climb or a hike or a run or whatever, we can see something in ourselves that we can't always see in the day to day. And that's really what the Phoenix is. And it's people with lived experience. So they themselves are in recovery, or somebody they love has been touched by this, or they're just civically minded and they want to be a volunteer to lead Phoenix events. And that's how we've grown the movement into every state. And just a couple of weeks ago, reached 1 million people all time through Phoenix.
Ah, congratulations. That is huge.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And and this well, like the the 1 million people we reached, it's really much more than that when you
Yes.
think of the folks that love them and that have been impacted by the ripples of their own mental health struggles or addiction struggles of that person sort of at the center. And um and so it's exciting, and we set a new vision for the next 5 years. We're trying to serve 10 million people with free recovery support.
How do you do it?
Yeah, it takes, it took me learning as a leader, this great lesson that each person that's part of the Phoenix movement, volunteers and staff and our donors and everyone
Hmm.
involved,
Hmm.
is sort of a principled entrepreneur. We share this vision and these principles. We believe in the dignity and the strength in people. And I have to be willing and open to listening to innovations and ideas from people who are closest to the work. And that's how we've grown. In the early days it was all fitness related, and then we started doing art, and our volunteers wanted to do music, and then we started bringing in everything from chili cook-offs to social events and Halloween parties and all sorts of stuff. And that's how we grew to a place where we have sober sections at music festivals. We partner with the Divided Sky Foundation to put on Music on the Mountain, a totally drug and alcohol free music festival in Vermont every year. And, all these innovations came from just knowing that everybody has a unique gift and a passion. And if we create a space where they can share that with others, not only do they lift people, but by lifting others, they lift themselves.
Mhm.
And that's how this movement has caught fire.
Mhm. Well, and it's amazing when that ripple effect happens in your own family because we share a lot of similar um, father experiences. And, my dad is still in active addiction, and I don't talk to him anymore, but my brother got sober 3 years after me, and I know you have a brother who's sober as well. And to be on that journey, and you talk in your book about how you prayed for that. And I remember being in AA meetings being like, gosh, I hope somebody else in my family gets it. And we see that ripple effect. My best friend helped me get sober, and I helped another best friend get sober, people that I drank with. And then all of these other relationships that I have that I've met in the sober community, which I think you really talk about that too, about how important community is and makes all the difference. And, I guess I'm curious to know why the book this year. You've been sober a long time. I saw your TED talk in 2016, which was phenomenal. Mental Health America awarded you was it last week that you were there
Yeah,
for the
last week.
conference? Um, and I think like these accolades are amazing. And you're so humble, and I think what's so rich about these experiences is it gives more exposure to the work that you're doing, which ultimately is more resources for people to tap into, and it's spreading the word. So, um, you know, why now? Why did you write the book now? Why is the movie being released now? I mean, you are a glowing light of long-term recovery, and that it is a daily active process to maintain sobriety. Um, so what
Yeah.
gave you that drive at this point?
Well, I mean, the book, I felt really compelled to release Rise, Recover, Thrive now because um, in the book, I talk about how the Phoenix community, who we see as people coming out of the criminal legal system, coming out of homelessness, or still actively, experiencing homelessness, or folks that have had some of the hardest lives you could imagine, um, can come together in one place, whether it's from their shopping carts outside with all their worldly possession and they come into a Phoenix event, or they live in the nicest neighborhood and they come to the Phoenix event. But we fist bump, we high five, we lift each other up, and we believe in each other. And through our ethos, we're not pulling each other down, but we're intentionally trying to be there for each other on a day when you might be stronger, and then maybe the next day I can be there for you in a tough time. And that's true nurturing community. But I really think that message needs to be lifted up now, because um, the world can feel more divisive and othering than ever before. And it is not that, from what I see. It is
Mhm.
people that are there for each other in tough times, on hard days. And then that same person can return that favor to their neighbor, their friend, their community at another time. And I wanted to tell that story. So getting the book out was important to me, this year and in this sort of cultural moment in our country. And then also, uh, having dyslexia. If you read chapter 4, I took me a long time to put these thoughts together. And I think it's kind of special. And one of the challenges with dyslexia is like to write a book that I will probably never read myself. you know
Mhm. Mhm.
I've read lots of sections of it, lots of pieces, lots of edits, lots of rewriting. But I tried to read the audiobook myself, and I just couldn't do it with my
Mhm,
dyslexia.
mhm,
But I wanted to bring the story to the world because there's a lot of people out there um, that have had the experience that these challenges have defined them,
mhm.
and I don't think it defines us. It might be the early chapters in your book, but we get to write the next chapters, and let's get to it and support each other in doing it.
And your dyslexia, I was when I was listening to the audio, and when it said in the beginning, this book is not read by the author due to dyslexia, and excuse me if I didn't say it appropriately in the way that it was in the book, but I thought, wow, well, it's also Dyslexia Awareness Month, and what a perfect time to talk about that. And then listening more to when you said, which I know a lot of kids feel this when they're called on in class to have to read out loud, or you said, you would skip the part, or try to leave early from an AA meeting because you knew you were going to be the one to have to read out loud. A
Yeah.
lot of people feel that way, whether that's anxiety, a learning disability, dyslexia. Like, how do you manage your dyslexia on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, I think I didn't feel this way at the time, like I grew up in the sort of time when people would like write notes and pass them in class before we could text each other, I guess, in class. But and I was never part of that. And I've always felt on the outside because my spelling was so horrible, my reading was really slow, my comprehension of written material was really slow. But if you told me something, I could remember it forever. If I heard something, it
Mhm.
was just like became part of me. And so I had to come up with all these ways to sort of like forecast and game the system to kind of get ahead and be sort of on the same level with my peers because of my dyslexia. And I didn't really know it at the time in my family of origin stuff, but having a father with mental health struggles and active alcoholism, I got also really good at sort of forecasting how people would be
Mm,
and how to show up to sort
mhm,
of be loved as a kid.
mhm,
And that skill translated from both dyslexia and that into being a strategic planner for an organization and thinking about how to forecast the opportunities, but the risks as we grew Phoneix
mhm.
into what it is today. So I do think those things can be challenging, but they can also bring gifts that you can use. You just don't want to use them in interpersonal relationships, because then you start future tripping about like how terrible things can go.
Sure.
Before you even like went out on your first date with somebody. So
And ha so the book happened. Blood, sweat, and tears, I'm sure,
yeah,
having written a book, one and done. Um, how did the movie come about?
the movie was just like a really interesting thing that kind of popped up. We were working with this group of philanthropists to bring Phoneix to scale. They saw the power of it and they thought, how many people could you really reach if you weren't as capital constrained? And they started mentoring us on sort of business management philosophy and helping us grow the organization. And we decided to launch in LA because, there's like 11 million people in a relatively small space. And I kind of figured if we could create impact there, it could grow elsewhere. So we hired this really special team of Phoneix staff to kind of launch LA. And this filmmaker said, can I follow that team? And it was during the pandemic, and we were still working out with masks on outside, and it was kind of a crazy time. But what unfolded over the years, over about a 5-year period, was us setting this vision of serving 1 million people and Phoneix going from relatively small to being in every state. So this powerful story of challenge and sadness and joy and transformation and hope and opportunity started to unfold in this footage, and it turned into the film Sober. So it's official like launch or will be early next year, but we have opportunities at soberfilm.com for people to request screenings. And we're going to do some more screenings across the country here soon.
Oh, wonderful. So we can see if the film is coming to our city or close by and travel to screen it or screen it online.
Yeah,
And do you
yeah, you can
purchase it
screen it.
online?
You can screen it online, and you can also request a screening in your community. And
Oh,
then
sure.
we're working with those like kind of grassroots groups that are popping up in communities to figure out a theater and how we can bring the film there.
Hmm.
And their hope is too to bring it to recovery conferences, over the next 12 months and just get it out to as many people as we can.
Amazing. That is a labor of love, no doubt. And, you know, other than the growth of people that you want to impact through this program, the Phoenix, what are some of your personal goals? I mean, you've done so much. Um,
Well, yeah, I mean, I think personal goals are, to me, new form is really exciting. It's our started out as the Phoenix app. You could kind of find Phoenix events near you. And we started to realize that what people need on their healing journey from recovery, addiction recovery or mental health stuff is so unique to the individual. So why not try to bring on other nonprofits onto that app that can offer what they're doing to help people heal? And it can help Phoenix members too. And we can help their members find Phoenix. And that turned into now about 150 nonprofits that are on there offering their services, and Phoenix offers our services. And we started to realize that we can build something different than what we see in social media. We can build like authentic, nurturing digital community, a place where like every tap and swipe is really designed to help you put your phone down and be with people instead of just keep you on a screen. And that's what NewForm is becoming. So we have about a 500,000 downloads of NewForm, and we have about 70,000 monthly active users. And when you jump on, it'll tell you whether there's 10 or 12,000 people there today on
mhm,
the platform. But it really is a marketplace of healing. So as far as like personal growth stuff, I think that is could be even bigger than the
mhm,
reach of what Phoenix has done. And of course, Phoenix is a key part, the biggest pillar under NewForm. But the other is sort of just finding that balance to spend time with my family. I had an incredibly accomplished mom, who
mhm,
just did amazing things in the business world growing up, but I didn't see her as much as I wish I had.
mhm.
And I don't want that to be the story of any of my kids. So, they're over here, they pop over here to Phoenix with me sometimes, and they love the little bird logo, so and they don't quite understand what I do for work, but I just try to spend time with them building memories that I didn't get to have as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, and that was another ism that you talk about in the book, workaholism, and how, that can be another detachment from our parents and our caregivers. And look, I think that a- a- as parents, we have a responsibility, especially with a long family line of addiction and mental health, to educate our kids at an early age about, risk factors and likelihood of developing any mental health or substance use issue, but also having coping mechanisms and being able to talk about things and showing up differently for our kids that maybe our own parents weren't able to do when they were parenting us. And having that open communication. I have 4 teenagers now, so I'm like, it's like whack-a-mole trying to figure out who needs what conversation to
Yeah.
have, what's too much, what's not enough. So it is. I think that you are such a force of change and hope. And I love the language that you use around your recovery too. That you mentioned in the book that you didn't really identify with Alcoholics Anonymous and some of the language of introducing ourselves as we do as an addict or an alcoholic, but today you say, I am a person in recovery. And I think that a lot of it is about the language that we use, and what we identify with.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think with, like I said, I think that's certainly part of our story, but it's not all of who we are.
Hmm.
And if we sort of just think of ourselves as some of our biggest challenges in life, it's hard to grow from that place.
Hmm.
And I think we're the truth about all humans is that we're resilient, strong, have innate gifts, and are sort of a gift to the world just by being here. And sometimes the lessons of life teach us something that isn't true about ourselves that make us doubt that. But I think, Phoenix is just a place where others can believe in you, even if you don't yet believe in yourself. And once you have that belief in yourself, you can immediately share it with the people that are coming into Phoenix behind you.
Hmm. You definitely give that away in the work that you're doing, and certainly leading by example. So thank you for that. My last question for you is about spirituality. As soon as you logged on, I felt this calm presence. And when I watched your TED talk, I felt that same presence. And I'm like, this guy's got to meditate. I mean, you just, you seem really grounded. And I know you don't identify as somebody who practices any kind of religion, but, is the Phoenix your church or your spirituality? Or, what do you do for your recovery in terms of connecting with something bigger than yourself?
I think for me, my my experiences in the outdoors help me appreciate like the quiet moments in places, like you be in the mountains and you know climbing up a ridge to a summit is stunning and you experience all there, but you also experience all just sitting outside the tent like watching the sunset, or um, you know, just being really thoughtful about where you're putting your feet as you're moving up this
Mm,
difficult terrain. And it teaches you like a presence and a stillness that's, I think, important. And I try to kind of bring that with me in whatever moments throughout the day. And it could be just like, sitting and watching my son and daughter play together. Or, sitting here at Phoenix, I'm in Boston, I can see the gym through my window and I'm watching the fire cadets warm up for their workout down there. And I don't know, I think just being someone who observes the
mm.
world around you helps you figure out how you fit into it better.
So well said. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And this is just another opportunity for people to listen to your story and to find different resources and ways to get involved. I'll put the links to the book and the Phoenix in the show notes, and as well as your TED Talk. And I just want to remind people to tap into your passion and be the change that you wish to see in the world. Have a great day.